And we are live.
Uhuru, and welcome to everyone. We appreciate so much your participation in this very important emergency webinar to discuss, what is going on and the continuous attacks on our people and on the Black liberation struggle. And we know that there has been something very important that has got passed down pertaining to the Voting Rights Act. And by all intents and purposes, the Voting Rights Act, for the most part, has been gutted. And we are going to be getting into a discussion about what that means for us, how we should be proceeding, and also about the importance of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. Let me just open up one moment. I'm going to just share with you briefly um, a brief presentation. Hold on real quickly, please, and thank you for having your patience with me. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the Principles of Unity, the Black is Back Coalition was founded as a coalition in response to the advent of Barack Hussein Obama under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement. He's one of the co-founders. And we thought it was necessary as a collective of people in the Black community and organizations to stand up strongly on the principles of the Black liberation struggle. And the principles of unity for the Black is Back Coalition is that we are defined as a coalition that is anti-imperialist and anti-colonialism. That is very important. We are against the manifestations of colonialism, neocolonialism, Zionism, military occupation, proxy wars, economic embargoes, trade restrictions. And that's very, very important to have a politic that reflects that. We agree with the principle of equal democratic representation and voting rights of the organizations within the BIBC. We agree to be respectful of the ideological differences within the organizations, and we agree to resolve our differences in a democratic way. And we agree that African people worldwide must have self-determination, and that oppressed peoples all throughout the world must also have self-determination. Let me see, come on, slide, next slide. I don't know what's going on with my, let's see if I can do it this way. I'll just have to move it like that. And the Black is Back Coalition was founded in 2008. And at some point, we began to see the necessity of having an electoral campaign school and challenging this current barbaric two-party ruthless system of elections, which basically just has people voting for evil, just has people running around like hamsters on a hamster wheel, voting for evil. And we said no. We wanted to inject radical, revolutionary issues into the campaign that reflects our people and our circumstances. We will see no ground to the colonizer at all. So we began this electoral campaign school in which we challenged this two-party system, and in which we advocate and look for radical, revolutionary candidates who are bold enough to stand up for what our people need. And out of our electoral campaign school, and we came up with the 19-point platform for Black self-determination. In fact, the electoral campaign school was built around these principles, but you can certainly see some of them, like elevate and empower Black women, protect the Black community control of police, free all political prisoners, roll back mass incarceration, for reparations. And you can see these 19 points, but I'm going to really focus on, and we're going to be talking a lot about point number 15, voting rights. And I just want to show you the powerful platform that we came up with around voting rights. So we believe that the right to vote, to effectively express a preference for political candidates, parties, or social policies is an inalienable right, the deprival of which results in a kind of social death. In this sense, the vote belongs to communities and to the people as much as it does to individuals. Therefore, in addition to an irrevocable right to vote, we demand the use of proportional representation voting systems that more effectively reflect Black people's political aspirations and opinions. Winner takes all voting, as practiced in the United States, is inherently undemocratic and incompatible with Black people's right to self-determination. And so I will stop it right there. But I just wanted to give people a brief overview of the Black is Back Coalition, our electoral campaigns school, which we will be having. Our next one will be coming up the first week in June. But this is so important that we have this discussion right now, today, in terms of how we should proceed. How should we, as Black people, be feeling? What exactly does this even mean about the Voting Rights Act? And our panelists today, we are going to be having an interview discussion. And we have various panelists who have been invited to participate. I'm just going to briefly introduce each one of them, and then we're going to open up the floor for discussion about what exactly what happened with the Supreme Court. What does this mean to us? And Chairman Omali Yeshitela will be one of the participants. He is the chair of the African Socialist International and the African People's Socialist Party. And from the day he tore down the racist mural from City Hall in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1966, he has never stopped fighting for the liberation of African people everywhere. In the heat of revolutionary struggle and during years in prison for his political work, the chairman has developed the theory of African internationalism that understands the world through the eyes of the African working class. In 1968, he founded the Burning Spear newspaper, which is still published today. He is also a former member of SNCC, and we're going to be hearing a lot more about SNCC and the role that they played in fighting for voting rights. He made reparations a household word with the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People, which was held in Brooklyn, New York in 1982. And he also founded the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And as the leader of the African Socialist International, he speaks to the growing base around the world and leads the worldwide movement for liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. And he's also the chair and one of the co-founders of the Black is Back Coalition. Next, we have Sister Ifeoma Wangaza, who played a very intricate role and has quite a history in the Voting Rights Act and in fighting for voting rights for our people. She founded the African American Institute for Policy Studies and Planning and served as the South Carolina coordinator for the Malcolm X grassroots movement. Additionally, she was the Green Party's nominee for the U.S. Senate in South Carolina in 2004. She worked with the National SNCC office and took on campus organizing with the successful Julian Bond Special Election Campaign Committee, SNCC Atlanta Project. She is also the founder and coordinator of the WMXP-LP community-based radio and has sat on the Pacific National Board, the nation's oldest progressive radio station. She is a former co-chair of the Jericho Movement for U.S. political prisoners, and she represented the U.S. Human Rights Network's Political Prisoners Working Group in observing the U.S. first appearance for the UN Universal Periodic Review in Geneva. So she has quite a history, and she will be speaking with us tonight. We also have Brother Paul Anthony Pumphrey. He has been an organizer and activist for over 40 years and is co-founder and member of the board of directors for Friends of the Congo, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization based in Washington, D.C. It's a human rights and grassroots institution that was established in 2004 to work to bring about peaceful and lasting change in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mr. Pumphrey's political work spans over 4 decades. In 1968, 78, and 83, and 88, Mr. Pumphrey was a deputy coordinator of crowd control for the Southern Christian Leadership marches on Washington and for the Stand for the Children March in 1997. We have Sister Betty Davis, who is a former adjunct professor at Medgar Evers College, and she's also the co-founder of the New Abolitionist Movement and a longtime activist for community control of education since the New York City school strike in 1967. She is also the chair of the Education Working Group for the coalition, and she is the host of the powerful radio program What's Happening on WBAI that airs on Wednesday. And she's a mighty force in the movement. And we also have Sister Belinda Parker Brown, who has been an advocate her whole life. She's made it her whole life's work to advocate on behalf of our community. She is an educator, a researcher, a specialist, a community organizer, and a motivational speaker. She is the president and chief executive officer of Louisiana United International, and she is a which is a bipartisan social justice organization whose mission is to champion the protection of human rights around the world. And we will be hearing quite a bit from her, and she is also running for elections in Louisiana. So I want to say to everybody, welcome, and welcome to everyone who is listening. And also, just something, please also keep in mind that the only thing that is going to get us out of this, that is going to advance us, is our organizing, being united and standing together as a people around revolutionary uh, ideology. The Black is Back Coalition is a very powerful coalition, and we need members. So I just want to remind people of that this will also be a call for membership so that we can continue to do the work that we do. And I just want to also remind people before we get started and open up the questioning is that no advances were ever made for Black people in the United States through voting. I'm not saying we shouldn't vote, but the main advances that we had did not come through voting. It came through us standing up, fighting together, and organized. They cannot stop us. They will not stop us. And it ain't the ballot that brought us any kind of liberation, and it ain't going to be the ballot that's ultimately going to get us there. So we go forward no matter what. And with that, I'm going to direct the first question to our sister, Ifia Ongaza, because of her tremendous history with working with voting rights. Why don't you tell us exactly what was this voting rights law that got enacted, and why did it get enacted? Why did we need to have this? So I'll start with you, Sister Fia, and your mic is closed.
Thank you. Thank you, Uhuru. Thank you, Sister Lisa. Thank you, um, Black is Back Coalition, for calling this important webinar. I've been listening to various analysis and fightbacks and such ever since the U.S. Supreme Court issued its ruling, for which we probably should have been prepared, given the fact that, first and foremost, that this country has not missed an opportunity to roll back the clock and to return us to, in their mind, at best, rule of white male property owners, and at a minimum, redemption and restoration of the Confederacy and the Old South. The passage of the Voting Rights Act followed the the I see. The passage of the Voting Rights Act followed a series of other efforts to figure out what to do with us meaning Africans who were previously enslaved, forced labor, and denied reparations. The first response was to end slavery by the 13th Amendment, except for the conviction of a crime. And then they put the crime making power in the hands of our enslavers. So that placed a shadow over what was supposed to be freedom or emancipation, and resulted in convict leasing and sharecropping, which was, as one author put it, slavery by another name. But then was the question of whether what would be our political um, status in the society, and especially as to protect the office holding of the winners of the Civil War. And there, then they passed the 14th Amendment, which provided for birthright citizenship, which, of course, Donald Trump and company at this point has submitted to the U.S. Supreme Court for reexamination and reevaluation. So we shouldn't rest easy on what the outcome of that is going to be, especially since Clarence Thomas continues to give them cover for all of the white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist decisions that they make. Um, at the same time, because of the resistance of um, the South specifically, but of white supremacists generally, we were terrorized and denied the opportunity to exercise the right to vote as a part of citizenship. And that resulted in the passage of the 15th Amendment, which said that no voting interference based on folks' prior status or of their race. However, um, following 1865, following the uh, Tillman Hayes compromise, where the northern whites withdrew from the South in order, in exchange for the South agreeing to allow Hayes to become president. Then we went into what is commonly called the Jim Crow era, where the none of the so-called Civil War amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments, had any meaning, where we were terrorized and denied the exercise of the right to vote for 150 years, actually. They developed all kinds of as we see with everything else, and it has occurred with the leading up to this Calais decision, various mechanisms. For instance, during the Jim Crow era, where we had been denied en masse the right to learn to read and write, literacy tests were applied. So that in order to be able to register and vote, you had to be able to read a section and interpret it of the whatever constitution, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. And of course, the person who was demanding that, making this demand, could could or could not read himself. So he didn't know whether what you were saying was what was actually written there or not. In other instances, you had the demand: how many black jelly beans are there in a jar, and all such absurdities as that. And that, in addition to that, came the poll tax, where we were in crushing poverty, and every dime that we could get our hands on was for survival. They were demanding that we use those funds, allocate them to exercise the constitutional right to vote. That that failing, then they came back with the grandfather clause, where if your um, grandfather could vote, then you didn't have to pass the literacy test and you didn't have to pay poll tax, that you were already just entered into the voting rolls and eligible to register and vote. So, quite frankly, we've been here before, and we have not only uh, survived, but we've thrived, we've figured it out, and we've overcome.
Right. But
And
if I may ask you one question, Sister Thea, because just with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, what was it about that that I guess prevented some of these things? And why is it just an act? And why does it have to be renewed?
what the Voting Rights Act of 1965 did was to revive the protections of the Civil War amendments.
Okay.
And as a result of that, it said that the uh, Confederate States could not put in place voter suppression practices like poll taxes, like literacy tests, like grandfather clauses to prevent us from being able to exercise the constitutional right of citizenship, which is the right to vote. Out of that, that there any changes that they made in the laws, voting registration and exercise would have to be approved by the Department of Justice. It was called the pre-clearance section, section two, section five. I'm sorry, section five of the Voting Rights Act. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act required that they correct and cure any changes in voting laws, administration, practices that had the effect of disenfranchising, of preventing African people and other people of color from being able to register and vote. The Calais decision, first of all, Holder, Shelby versus Holder, gutted Section 5, which meant that they were no longer subject to review of the changes that they made with regard to eligibility to register and vote. And the gutting of Section 2 by Calais in the most recent decision means that effect is no longer the standard, but intent becomes the standard. Therefore, as one person put it, we went from having to be a crack detective to establish effect to being having to be a fortune teller and mind reader in order to be able to say what their intent is. And using the euphemism of party, then the U.S. Supreme Court gave white supremacists across the country the permission to formulate districts, to draw the lines of district in such ways as to protect um, incumbents and to assure the election of other whites, uh, leaving Black people and other people of color with no obvious recourse for representation, meaningful representation.
Well, we have quite a bit of work to do. Chairman, I'm going to ask for you to come in. And also, my understanding is that the Supreme Court, normally when they hand down a ruling or something like that, they usually allow time for maybe there to be challenges, or they might take 30 days or something for it to become enacted. But this time they did it immediately. Chairman, do you want to jump into this discussion and talk about that aspect of it, and of course, what we need to do and what this means for our organizing?
Well, first of all, I want to really express appreciation for what Comrade Sister Fia has just offered us. And I do think that it is true, as you said, Comrade Vice Chair, that most of the victories we won was outside of the electoral process. In fact, the right to vote was won outside of the electoral process. We didn't go and vote to be able to vote. We made struggles, and SNCC was central to much of that. And I think about that 1964, the Summer Project in Mississippi, where SNCC played such a fundamental role. I think about Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and how they were murdered just for trying to vote, just to trying to organize people to vote. And so part of what I think is really important, especially with the development of SNCC and particularly with the kind of role that Sister Afia played in this process of of pushing from within the boundaries of a civil rights movement where joining inside the system had been such a critical thing. SNCC pushed beyond that and talked about, in fact, it caused the crisis up inside the organization itself, where SNCC began to talk about the actual achievement of Black Power, which was an anti-colonial demand. And when you say anti-colonial, what you mean is removing the capacity of foreign and alien power to dominate your lives and make laws that they can give one day and take back the next day. That's what Comrade Afia just went through this whole process. You're supposed to have these rights, and then they take it. You're supposed to have these rights, and she said, "This stuff we've been fighting for a lifetime around the same question." And I believe that we are on a real different kind of trajectory or have the potential. I think what the system always does, without intending necessarily, well, without intending to do so, it shut the doors for a sector of the population, those who opposed Black Power, those who felt like the only solution was to integrate up into the system. They
Mhm.
shut every door that presumed to be available to integrate into the system to solve the problem. So that puts us in a situation where we have to go outside or have to be willing to go beyond what happens in the system to solve the problem.
Mhm.
And so one complication, apparent complication, I don't think is real, that is offered us by such a ruling as this, as many of the other things that we've noticed happening in the recent period, is that they are attempting to take away all the democratic space that we have. We fought for that space. People like to say we fought and died for the right to vote. We fought for that democratic space. And the significance of that democratic space is that it gives us room to advance our struggle in a way that doesn't necessarily call for us to act precipitously, et cetera, before we've gained a certain kind of capacity. The vote gives us access to stuff we never had before. In terms of being able to reach all kinds of people because it was institutionalized not for Black people. We didn't even have the right to vote. In fact, we were still suffering up until I think what was it? When was it that the Dred Scott decision, well, it wasn't really overturned. It was Civil War that overturned the Dred Scott
Right.
decision that said
Yeah.
Black people didn't have no rights that white
Mhm.
people had to respect. So I just think that we find ourselves in this situation of developing what we had come to conclude years ago. First of all, I talk about SNCC, but SNCC benefited from Garvey. SNCC benefited from the stuff that Malcolm, where Malcolm was taking us, et cetera, that we have to have our own
Mhm.
capacity for self-government. Because as long as somebody else controls you and controls what is legitimate for you and controls the ability to feed, clothe, and house you, you're in trouble. So anytime, I mean, they can wake up and I remember, I forgot the situation where these white people who were hunting, might have been in Alabama, but I'm not sure exactly now. I can't remember the details. And one of them, they were saying, well, we got nothing to do. Let's go kill a nigger.
Mhm.
This is how they talk. And they went out and killed some Africans just because they were bored. And this is what they had the ability to do. And they could do it without any meaningful kind of repercussions coming from the system. So we have to grow a capacity to build our own power. And this is what I think is really important. Not to say that we don't fight for that democratic space. We need as much of that space. We don't concede that to anybody. We
Mhm.
need that democratic
Right.
space to actually elevate, ourselves to a higher capacity. We needed to win African people. You got to remember, what happened was in 1965, as our movement was moving, 64, we're talking about a summer project. We're talking about the kind of stuff that happened with Petersburg and the brutality imposed. And this was something that went all around the world and was taken advantage of by the Soviet Union and other people who were contending for the same forces internationally that the United States was contending with. This is part of what informed the political terrain that we were working with and that we were struggling with. And so, anyway, I just think that those are important consideration. I think that has something to do with the fact that the United States government attacked us in July of 2022,
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
said we were working for the Russians. And at
Mhm.
the same time, the United States is in this contest with Russia for autocracy versus democracy, as they call it. But we, black people in this country, are the glaring example of there not being democracy.
Mhm.
So, but what they try to do is neutralize our criticisms by saying that if you criticize the condition of black people, it's not because that's true, it's because some alien power, some Russians paid you to do this. I'm just say this finally. Uh, I
Ridiculous.
think it's really important as we were moving toward these situations we're talking about, and it was really intense. You had to be alive and sometimes be there to understand the intensity of the struggle that we were involved in during this period, and which went to Chicago and other kinds of places. When I say in terms of this intensity, that in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed. In 1966, in 65, they killed Malcolm X.
Mhm.
Malcolm X told us about black nationalism, which said something about when you vote, you control the politic in your own community. You
Mhm.
control the economy in your own community, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They killed Malcolm in 1965. In 1968, they killed King, who built this massive movement. Whatever else one thinks, King had this extraordinary capacity to mobilize millions and millions of African people here and around the world. And that was something, and that was dangerous because we had entered into an period of anti-colonial struggle all around the world, and King had to be heading in that direction as well, and almost said it. And then
Mhm.
1969, they killed Fred Hampton. They had massive attacks on the Black Panther Party. And in fact, the Attorney General of the United States, John Mitchell, said by the end of the 1969, we will have destroyed the Black Panther Party. So what that meant was, even though we wanted the right to vote, they destroyed our organizations, independent organizations. They destroyed our own independent programs, as represented by Malcolm, as represented by King, as represented by the Black Panther Party, as represented by all these other independent forces, then gave us the Democratic Party. And that is the thing that so you see the majority of African people are not members of the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, the Black is Back. They're members who are engaged in political life. The majority of them are members of the Democratic Party. And even that's being coming obviously shakier and shakier every day because many people are moving outside of it. So I don't know if I effectively addressed the question, but we're going to have to build on our own. And we're going to have to take whatever spaces that can be taken in our own communities. We got to raise the question that Comrade Sister Afia just mentioned about reparations. It has become a critical thing that we deal and win masses of African people to. I think most of our work should revolve around building our own power. I think that's what most of our work should be around, as opposed to simply fighting them because they didn't do what we wanted them to do.
Mhm.
Uhuru.
Uhuru, and thank you so much, Brother Chairman. And with that, I'm going to bring up Paul Pumphrey, who has been talking about some of the things that need to change in terms of these elections to ensure that people have power. And also, I see that Brother Nkululeko put an excellent question in the chat. So I just want to remind people and some of the panelists too, when we go into Q&A, you will have the chance to bring up these discussions because we want this to be a robust discussion where we can bring up these issues. So I just want to put a pin in that, Brother Kulaleka, because we will also discuss that as well. Brother Paul, so what are some of the things that you feel that need to be done with this corrupt system to ensure that representation is more fair in terms of voting?
Excuse me, please.
Yes,
I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we characterize the problem with the system as corruption.
that's true.
Mm,
I think the system
yeah,
is working the way it's supposed to work.
exactly.
I should use the word repulsive system. That I should, thank you, Chairman. Repulsive system, because it's so repulsive. But Brother Paul?
Yes, thank you very much. Couple of things I think that we need to look at when we start talking about the United States always telling the world that it's a democratic society. It's important that we begin to show that it's not working in a democratic way at all. When you look at the moves that they're making with the Supreme Court, the moves that they're making with all kinds of attacks on our community, the moves that they've been making around this country, it's important for us to recognize that we need to begin to start talking about some different strategies of really exposing why this country does not have a democratic system. Because I think a lot of people are confused and thinking that all they need to do is register and vote. And that, that should solve all our problems. Well, clearly over the years, we've shown that that has not happened. Even when we had a quote unquote black president, the democratic rights within inside of our community was not respected as much as it should be. When you look at the fact that they used our black president to attack the country that had the highest standard of living in Africa, and that was Libya, and just totally destroy that country, which is still destroyed to this day. This was a country that when they sold their oil each month, their citizens got a dividend check as a percentage of the money that was generated from the sale of their oil. This was a country where, in fact, if you had a child, the government gave you a lump sum of money to help raise that child. If you wanted to go to college, and that the major that you wanted to study was not existing in the university system in Libya, the government would pay for you to travel to another country to study what you had to study and pay your school expenses and your housing expenses and your food expenses. Okay? You can't even find that anywhere in Europe. You can't find that anywhere in the United States or Canada, all these countries that claim to be democratic. When you turn around and you looked at a country such as Libya that had a government that had the highest standard of living across the country of any country in the continent of Africa, and then look at what happened after the U.S. led the U.S. quote unquote black president led war against that country, and look at where it is today. It has been totally destroyed. In fact, they literally started because a lot of Africans south of Libya went through Libya to get to the Mediterranean Sea to get in their efforts of trying to make it to Europe. And they would get captured, and you found them on auction blocks to be sold as slaves inside of Libya. And this is the new Libya that was brought to Africa by the so-called black president of Barack Obama. So what we have to understand is that if we want real justice, that we got to go even beyond just talking about the color of themselves of whoever may be their political candidate, because most of us know of so-called black candidates or black members of Congress, local governments, mayors, etc., who have not served the best interests of our community. We've seen it in some of the major cities. We have to begin to start developing an agenda that matches our needs. And as we develop that agenda that matches our needs, we need to go after how the system of democracy works in this country. For example, most people make their decision on who they're going to vote for by what they see on TV, read in the newspaper, or listen on the radio. And right now, to be on the radio or on TV or in the newspaper, that candidate has to raise a considerable amount of money to put in the hands of those broadcasting facilities. Well, the reality is that the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, are the ones who gives licenses to the TV stations and to the radio stations. And that license allowed them to advertise, and a lot of those stations make billions of dollars, depending on their market, or at least millions of dollars, because they have that license, and that license is free, and it's supposed to be a public license by the federal government.
Right.
So my question is, how are we not demanding that the FCC should require anybody who gets a free license from FCC, every election campaign must provide free airtime for any of the candidates, any of the qualified candidates that are running, to explain what they see as their agenda for their political position. Even though, don't make it because you got money is the only reason why people get to know who you are. People should be able to know who you are simply because you are a legitimate candidate, and that money should not be in the middle of it, because if so, it means only those with the big money will control who gets the message for people to choose from. And I know many of us have gone to vote and look at the ballot and see 3 and 4 names that we knew nothing about, because they weren't on TV, they weren't on the radio, they weren't able to communicate what they stood for, what they didn't stand for. And we also understand too often those who do get on TV or on the radio are lying through their teeth as to what they're standing for. And so it's very important, as I see it, that in fact we build a movement in this country to demand accessibility through the airwaves in this country that will allow people to really have a legitimate understanding of who the candidates really are. I know that one time they used to have the League of Women Voters that would hold the presidential debates. And then one year they decided to allow the Green Party's candidate to be in the debates. And that was the last year that the League of Women Voters were allowed to have presidential debates. And then it became a commission set up by both the Democrat and Republican Party, so that only their candidates could be heard on national TV and on national radio stations as to what they were running for. So you had a choice between Twiddly-dee and Twiddly-dum, rather than, have a really legitimate discussion about what's wrong with the policies that this country is using, versus right now a debate between what corporate policy is better than the other corporate policies. And so these are the kind of things that I think that it's important that we demand more democracy from the perspective of, you can't have a democratic election, and I'm not talking about political party Democratic, but you cannot have a democratic election if people are kept away from understanding what the political positions are for those who are running. And we should begin to demand that. And we should say it to both of those major parties, Democrats and Republicans, that if you don't give us an opportunity to hear from all sides, we're not going to vote for you, because you, in fact, are working against democracy. And use that word of democracy in demanding true democracy. of the ability where we would be able to see and hear from the different people who are running, and that money doesn't become the major factor
Right.
as to what political candidates that may be running for office
And Brother
have the
Paul,
ability to communicate with the people.
I want you to just hold on to that thought. We got some dynamic uh, issues that are being put in and suggestions in the chat. But I want to hear from Sister Belinda Parker Brown and then Sister Betty Davis, who is an educator. And Sister Belinda Parker Brown, you are in Louisiana. So you are probably feeling this up close and personal, maybe than even some of the rest of us. Sister Belinda, so would you like to, and also she's running for office for a council person in Slidell. Are you with us, Sister Belinda? If you're muted, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I'm sorry.
Right. And we can't see you. Can you turn your camera on? Are you able to do that?
Yes, I'm able to do
Okay.
that. It's just that I'm having some light issues, some light problems. Okay, I really do appreciate this discussion. Can you guys see me?
We can
Yes.
see you fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate this discussion. And yes, Sister Lisa, thank you so much for this opportunity to share that I am running for city council here.
We endorsed you. Yes.
Thank you. Woo! Yoo-hoo! Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for that endorsement because we know that we're on point with doing the right thing with the 19-point Black is Back, most powerful, agenda with what this is really all about. So I just want to I just want to listen. I see we got all these heavy hitters on here. Right now I'm in a position, to really have the opportunity to have our voices heard on what we as a people are concerned about on the local level. So, that's what's, I'm excited about, being in the race so that I can be able to, take that position and talk about how we can organize and mobilize our people to come together for our, issues and, what's on our agenda. So I'm just, right now I'm going back and forth, been quite busy, working hard. It takes a lot. I heard what, Sister Afia said in the beginning, this is our life, our sweat, our blood, everything, sacrifices that we're making, to make things better, for our people. So I'm on board 100%.
And your election one more time is no, I was about to say November, this upcoming May, right? May
Yeah,
16th?
Saturday is the election day. And we already done early voting. Early voting was it was a lot better turnout. People are still, slow about coming out, but I'm looking forward to having a really good turnout in my district, which is District C. I'm in the heart of the city, right in the center of the city. And it's going to take a miracle because who my constituents are. But nevertheless, I'm here and I'm getting a lot of support, from surrounding districts as well. So that's what's important right now is that, win or lose, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And that is represent my people. Like the chairman said, we fight for the people. That's what it's all about.
That's right. And when we fight, we don't lose. There ain't no losing when you get into the
Right.
elections and you bring up these issues. There ain't no losing. Sister
I think
Betty,
it's important to say that Sister Belinda also is not taking any money. She won't even take money from the coalition.
she ain't taking a
That's
dime.
why she's not taking any money. That's a statement.
And I'm not buying nothing. Don't try to sell me nothing. I don't want no signs. I don't want nothing. I'm going strictly on working for the people, and the people are really making a lot of noise, in support of what what's what my campaign is all about. So, and a lot of young people are are on board, because I went into the schools. We got three major high schools here. We got five universities,
Mhm.
throughout the state of Louisiana. So I'm just not making noise in my district, in my area, but all across the whole state of Louisiana. People are talking about me on the radio. They talking about, what's happening here in Slidell in my district. So
Uhuru. Okay.
Uhuru. And Sister Betty, because I know you have a lot to say, and she's been having some very dynamic programs on WBAI talking about these issues. And we were just talking about it last night, or she was just talking about it last night on WBAI with Sister, and she's she's such a revolutionary. And she's always talking about metaphysical imperialism and education and the importance of being on them school boards and controlling the school budgets.
Absolutely.
Betty Davis, Uhuru.
I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my concerns, with what we are discussing here in terms of the vote. And one of the things that I think the Chinese symbol for a crisis is also an opportunity. And
Mhm.
so we know, and I hope the chairman will jump in every time I go astray here. But my impression of this, what came out of the 60s, especially under the issue of local community control of the public school system in New York City, is that the institutions that were supposed to be the progressive institutions for change were perverted under the control of a vicious ruling class, racialized ruling class, symbolized by Albert Shanker, who
Mhm.
was the head of the union called the Teachers Union in New York City. And the reason I'm going to start with this discussion in terms of voting is because you know that this is a working class country, regardless of what anybody says. And that is why the emphasis of the Black is Back Coalition and the African People's Socialist Party on the African working class is an important um I don't want to say I will say term to look at. The issue is that the majority of us, we are 99% of the economically underclassed in this country. And it is not just Black people. So, vision, if you can, 10 chairs. And of these 10 chairs, the people who own 99% of the wealth have all nine chairs. And the 99% of us who represent 99% of the population are expected to all sit on one chair.
Mhm.
So, this is the image from the get go when this country was founded. So, when they talked about voting, even before they considered the African vote, they did not want that European invader to vote.
Mhm.
After they used them to annihilate one of the most vicious holocausts in the history of humanity occurred on this continent with all of the people they called tribes. They were nations. They came with the technology for killing and they created a horrendous holocaust.
Mhm.
Once they got the land and they got the wealth, they didn't even want to share it with the European working class laborer, which they reduced to labor slaves.
Mhm.
And now we are looking at the legacy of that. And they said it in their constitution. They made it clear. And one of the ways they made it clear that they were going to keep us disenfranchised was the whole electoral college. And
Mhm.
so when you look at what the Supreme Court just recently did, it did not stop with just gutting the Voting Rights Act. And that's why Sister Belinda Parker's role is so pivotal here. 5 days after April 9th in Louisiana versus Calais, the court then told the government of the state that they would stop the midterm elections.
Mhm.
People who had already cast their votes, the votes no longer mattered. Using the racist governors, such as Jeff Landry, they canceled elections, they redrew maps to eliminate, guess who? The Black working class.
Mhm.
And then we go on further, they made it harder to enforce the Section 2 Act when voters seek districts that allow them to elect representatives of their own choice. So right away, they're saying you will not have local community control. They did not shut down the whole election. They targeted the congressional races affected by the fight over Black representation. So one of the attacks by uh, the Justice Brown Jackson was that the court has no longer is no longer content to just make these laws, but they are now taking steps to shape how its ruling will be carried out in the various states, in the various cities, in the various local elections. The court used a discretionary procedural power to turn its attack on voting rights into an election weapon. Okay? So, in effect, the Supreme Court rushed its own paperwork to help make the power grab that is behind this decision
Yeah.
legal. Now, what does that mean to us? I mean, they even canceled absentee ballots that have already been cast. And this is what Sister Belinda is fighting against. So, in the past, they used troops. When we had our uprising in Baltimore, they sent in the troops. Okay? They had the old, as Sister Afia told us, the old Jim Crow system of literacy tests. And then now we're faced with the U.S. court's modern emergency redistricting and election calendar powers. And Louisiana is pivotal because Louisiana is the test case for Black people who make up a third of that state's
Mhm.
population. So the message is plain. If Black voters win representation under the Voting Rights Act, the courts can call the representation unconstitutional. And if an election is already underway, a governor can stop it. If ballots have already been cast, officials can refuse to count part of them. Well, they've been doing this all along. That's how Trump got in.
Yeah.
And the Democrats were too punk to challenge them after Obama. So Black districts have been broken apart. Elections are delayed. And by the time the courts finish hearing challenges, the political damage will already have been done. So this one branch, the federal government that uh, people don't elect, and I'm talking about the Supreme Court. And we must remember its justices sit for life. So, in effect, um, we're right back to Dred Scott as our chairman began this discussion. So, then the answer is it cannot be won by just courtroom appeals alone. The answer must be the model, the template of the Black is Back coalition. The answer must be organized resistance in
Mhm.
the streets, in the unions, in the churches, on campuses, and in the Black communities being targeted.
Right on.
That's
Do I
right.
have enough time to make one more point?
Thank
Sure,
you.
please.
Have my time,
Yes.
Sister Betty.
Thank you
Go
very much.
ahead.
Okay, so I know many of you have heard me talk about how local community control is important. But one of the things I always have trouble with is when the chairman is talking about dual and contending powers. And I really can't blame anybody but me for this problem. I got to give New York City NPDUM credit. Every time they have a meeting, I got to give Dr. Matsanella Odom credit. Every time he had a meeting on Thursdays during the discussions to enlighten us and help us develop our critique of capitalism, they always talked about dual and contending powers. But the chairman started off this discussion with the phrase building our own power. And then he proceeded to go on to say we must vote versus the local community control. And then continued on to talk about Garvey's philosophical base. So this is the dilemma. How much of what we say here can we help people understand as the solution, as part of the reparation issue? And I appreciate that you have agreed to use the phrase metaphysical imperialism because part of reparations is not financial, it's not jobs. Queen Mother Moore said, you don't want a job, you want a calling, you want a career. And if you are an African in this country, which is based on a Holocaust, which continues the Holocaust, then there's only one career you must have, and that's to be a revolutionary warrior against
That's right.
imperialism and its corollary, which is what we have in the terms of American capitalism.
Oh,
So the menu that Garvey gives us is that whatever business is in our neighborhood, we should control it.
That's right.
When the government of New York City started focusing on ethnic cleansing, which they call gentrification, okay, the first thing they attacked after they took the school budget from us, which was our way of setting up our base for dual and contending powers, and we had therefore no contracts to get the money to develop our communities further. Otherwise, the New York City school budget, and I know I'm digressing, I'll give you a few examples. 20 million in special seating for our children. If that's the extended day expansion, $20 million for extended day expansion. What is extended day expansion? It's when the community interdicts into the school system. It's when people who transitioned out of prison and have developed these programs that can help us reclaim our families that have been abused by the death camps of America as they come out and transition out of prison so they don't go away and go back. We're talking about the Black Blue Power Blueprint. I know I'm saying it wrong. In St. Louis, which reclaimed all the housing that the city council did not want to release to organizations such as the African People's Socialist Party in St. Louis. In spite of that, this organization has reclaimed houses. What have they done with those houses? They've used those houses to bring in um, experts who teach skills as they are rebuilding and refurbishing these houses. And then these houses go to the formerly incarcerated. They use uh, this situation of economic desert deliberately created by what Naomi Klein called disaster capitalism, where a hurricane comes and they know it's coming and they do nothing afterwards to restore the infrastructure of certain communities. And nobody's surprised when they find out that those certain communities happen to be Black or look like me or happen to be Africans in America. Well, the Black Blue Power Blueprint has the solution to that. And it is the solution of Garvey. They do build doulas. They do build healthy restaurants where the food is delicious. So everybody becomes a potential vegetarian without realizing it because the food is so good. They do build uh, courts, baseball courts, I'm sorry, basketball courts where children can congregate without worrying about somebody coming along and shooting them because there are adults in charge, adults with a philosophy of a community that transforms us and fights against metaphysical imperialism, which is the tool of self hate. And you know what Frantz Fanon said about the cure for self hate is to fight against your enemy. And where can you learn how to fight against your enemy except in a structure that creates community control and fights against the metaphysical imperialism of what people in this country call racism, but what we call imperialism and colonialism. And there's that word. And here comes my problem. And I'm going to try and conclude with this. I come convinced that the majority of Africans in this country don't have a clue of what we mean by colonialism. And so, although the solution is to organize, and the solution is to protest, and the solution is to have a general strike, if we can't make people understand that colonialism is the problem, and that dual and contending powers is the first step on the road to an answer to this capitalist genocide that the whole world is facing. If we can't make Africans in the Republic of Brooklyn understand they came after the businesses first, they came after them with fines, they came after them with constant visitations and investigations, and they systematically shut down the majority of our economic businesses. They designed highways so that they would go straight through the majority of our African communities and busted us up. They did this consistently. They did it in Louisiana, they did it in Florida, they did it in Georgia. And now we are facing these concentration camps they call cop cities because they know there is a history of what the Panthers tried to do. And I'm going to conclude by saying to you, and I know this is scatty and all over the place, please don't forget that if I'm not wrong, and Sister Afia can correct me, there was something called the Deacons of Defense. And
Yes,
a lot of the Panther groups grew out of the Deacons of Defense. And we don't have to say what they did because we know if anybody tried to stop an African vote from voting, the Deacons of Defense were there to protect them. And they weren't using prayers to do it. So when we talk about what the solution is that we must impose dual and contending powers. I
yes,
will conclude with one point. In New York City, the New York City Council recently passed a bill that would create, pay attention, police buffer zones around all of our schools. They also tried to do it with religious institutions that don't, and we're not talking about synagogues. And the mayor has voted it down. We are now campaigning to make sure that one of the most local community institutions, the city council, obeys our demand for no police buffer zones. Because police buffer zones is just another definition for a mini cop city everywhere.
exactly. And Sister Betty, if you'll just hold on to that point too, there are so many people are bringing up so many powerful discussions. We could almost have a webinar around each and every one of them. But I just want to take a moment to just remind people that as we talk about dual and contending power and challenging the system, we need to build. We need to increase membership. We need to do this. We have been funding our own liberation within the Black is Back Coalition, and we want that to continue. So what I'm just going to do right now, just briefly remind people how they can donate to the Black is Back Coalition and become a member. And then we're going to continue this discussion, and we want it to be more open, so some of the steering committee members can also participate. I see you have put some dynamic comments in the chat, so we want to continue with that. But let me just bring up right now the the slide to just show people how to become a member and, and how they can send in their money. Hold on one second, or send in their membership, I should say, to be more specific. Hopefully this is it. I'm going to go to the slide. Oh yeah, membership. So if you want to become a member of the Black is Back Coalition, because we need people to become members of the Black is Back Coalition, individual membership, $25. Organizational, if you're international, that's $200, national, $150, or state, local, or provincial, $50 to become a member. And this is how you can give, or you can become a member, I should say pay for your membership, or make a contribution. You can go online to www.blackisbackcoalition.org/donate, or Cash App. I love Cash App because you just do that so fast. But Cash App is $ BIBCOA, short for Black is Back Coalition, but $ BIBCOA. Or you can make checks payable to BIBC, and you can mail them to 4101 West Florissant Avenue, Street. I always forget which one it is. St. Louis, Missouri, 63115, and make the memo on the check to Black is Back Coalition. And so we're going to also be coming back again to the membership and how you can become a member, because that is so important. But I just wanted to remind people, as I'm seeing all these powerful comments in the chat, this is how you can become a member of the Black is Back Coalition and how you can make a contribution. We would like to raise $300 tonight, $300 to $400, because we fund our own liberation. We don't ask for money from anyone. And so that is important to show that we do not need colonizers, period. So again, you can send something to Cash App, $BIBCOA, and become a member of the Black is Back Coalition. So I'm going to just stop this right now. And then I just want to continue this discussion. It is so powerful. And I'm going to call on, and please, for some of you who are, BIB Coalition members, please raise your hand if you have something to say. But I just see a couple of comments that were put in the chat. And so I'm going to call on Brother Nkulaleko, because he put something very interesting in the chat. So do you want to ask that question yourself, Brother Nkulaleko?
Hey, Uhuru, Vice Chair
Uhuru.
Lisa. Thank you, comrade. And salute to the chairman and the Black is Back Coalition, as well as this awesome panel. The question I had, or the comment, was just a reflection, actually, in a question. After the Civil War, African people held many offices in the U.S. government during the Reconstruction era. The Compromise of 1877 resulted in a white backlash and state-sponsored terrorism meant to suppress Black voters. And then in the 1960s, we fought and won the right to vote again, resulting in the Voting Rights Act. Now we find ourselves fighting the same fight, because we haven't gained complete power. So can any of the panelists speak how, we should use the electoral process to gain power and to remain in that position? Uhuru.
Uhuru. There's a lot of stuff that's been talked about, and I want to be able to contribute to that, to much of it. But I just wanted to say that Comrade Sister Betty mentioned that the majority of the people Africans don't understand colonialism. Majority of Africans don't understand racism either. And the thing is that we have a responsibility to educate people about colonialism. See, when you look at Barack Hussein Obama, people saying being Black is not good enough. Obama represented a victory over racism. And so did most of your Negroes who were politicians who got elected, this and that. They have victory over racism. The victory over racism allows them to participate as colonial administrators over the rest of us. So that opens the door for their participating in the oppression of the rest of us. Africans need to understand colonialism, because colonialism is about power. And racism is about the attitude in the brains of white people, et cetera. So that's why you find most racists spending so much time trying to get white people to like them, trying to be more like white people, trying to do all those other kinds of things that really don't have anything to do with power and our status in the real world. The colonial question is a critical kind of question, Kamek Kulaleku. So that's part of what our task is to win people to an understanding of colonialism. To the extent that we are successful in winning people to understand that colonialism is the issue, and we don't just, it's not going to happen just because we have a discussion. Sister Betty was talking about some of the things that we have been successful in doing, building actual capacity for the people. People can be able to see a different kind of world based on what we allow them to participate in constructing that world. That's a critical aspect of the basketball courts, the doulas, the farm. We will formally initiating a farm opening within the next couple of days on Marcus Garvey's anniversary of Marcus Garvey's birthday. We'll have an official opening of the bakery cafe that we've established there. Now, this is under the leadership of Comrade Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella. She leads this work. I mean, it's human beings who do this stuff. Human beings put us here, and it's our responsibility as human beings to get us out of here. But we have to be able to recognize that. The other thing, Comrade Nkululeko, I think is really important. You said about we have to use the vote, not because we see it as the way to liberation, but we use it as a platform, one that can get us to people, because it's a thing that's open right now. You have access to people through this electoral process. You know, we ran for election in St. Petersburg, Florida, and we won recently, not too long ago, and because the white power doesn't want us to vote. They don't want us to vote. Come as Sister Belinda Parker Brown, and that's why that's why they took Malcolm out. That's why they took King out. That's why they took who we would vote for. So we introduced in St. Petersburg, Florida, tiny St. Petersburg, Florida, 18% African population, ran somebody on a reparations platform, ran somebody on Make St. Pete Southside Black Again, anti-gentrification platform. This is the stuff that Africans wanted to hear. Africans started they weren't coming to debates until we came there to these electoral debates till we started showing up. Then they sent 27 carloads of cops to disrupt when the mayor's debate, changed all the laws and rules about those debates because we brought the people there to talk about the kinds of issues that the people want to talk about. They don't want those discussions there. That's what it is that we're fighting for. And to have the capacity to do that in these various communities. And I know it's possible to do that. And I hope I didn't stray too far from where Carmen Kulaleku was trying to go with that question. But it can be done. And the people are the critical factors. And they don't want the people to vote. We have to open the door so the people can participate and give people access to it. Give people access, like when we did that basketball court, the FBI attacked us. And when they attacked us, the local newspaper, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, they don't like us that much. They ran an article because somebody came down to interview us and to talk to the people. So they were talking to the people and asking the people, how can they be supporting us who came under attack, saying we were working for the Russians? And one sister said, well, I don't know anything about working for the Russians. I don't know why they would do that. And one little brother, I think they said he was 12 years old. He said, I don't know nothing about the Russians, but don't mess with that basketball court. That's what he said. Don't mess with that basketball court. And then another brother who was there saying that in terms of Uncle Sam, tell Uncle Sam he's still waiting for his 40 acres and a mule. Take the question to the people. Take it to the people, and you'll find out it won't take long. If you say what the white people are doing is colonialism, the people will be able to do. People say that they're the devil. Africans will be able to unite with the colonial question if we take it to them. Uhuru. I'm sorry, I talked a long time.
Oh no, that was great. I also I think Is Sister Fia still with us? Because I saw in response to the issues that Paul was raising, she mentioned the fairness doctrine.
Yes.
She put in, is she still with us? Or does anybody have
No, she isn't.
The
any
fairness
comments?
doctrine required these stations to give equal time to anybody who, any candidates were running or something like that. They had to give equal time to all of them. That's what the so-called fairness doctrine was about.
And we have seen no evidence of the fairness doctrine.
There's
Uh,
Kamal Youssef,
yeah,
who's
Brother Youssef, Uhuru, California's in the
Yes.
house.
Yeah, there you can see me and hear me. Yeah,
Yes.
that fairness doctrine, and I believe it was the Reagan administration that dismantled the fairness doctrine. And they've been on this path since 1965. We should not overlook that Chief Justice John Roberts has been going after the Voting Rights Act since he was a lawyer in the Reagan administration, and he argued for weakening, various aspects. It was mentioned earlier, though, and really, I'm just going to co-sign on what everybody's been saying, and particularly around organizing, locally and still being able to use the vote effectively locally. Because they haven't taken away the vote, right? They've just uh, used these maps to dilute the vote, so it's just not going to matter. The Democrats are concerned because they know they're losing, their most faithful constituency, and that's being diluted. And there are other folks who realize that when Black people are attacked, everybody's rights are that much more easily dismantled. But it's also an opportunity because all of this is extremely unpopular. Which is why these maps are necessary, because the Republicans know that what they're doing is unpopular. And as unpopular as the Republicans are, the Democratic Party remains even more unpopular. Even if they're winning these special elections just because of just how disaffected people are with really the system altogether. And the Democratic Party, right, doing everything it can to repress any kind of insurgency from below in its own ranks. And the folks who are winning as Democrats, they aren't really running as these kind of centrist Democrats, right? So we should be taking advantage of this opportunity. There's such little confidence in the system, and that is going across all the various communities. It's interesting. I was thinking about your comments, Chairman, how Obama and other Black elected officials, they've been these victories against racism, and the racism hasn't gone anywhere, right? Because I've been working on an essay looking at a speech that Frantz Fanon gave, Racism and Culture, at the 1956 Congress of Negro Writers and Artists, and the resolution of that particular Congress. A lot of the leading lights, right, of the African world writers were there, those who could make it there, right? Dr. Du Bois couldn't make it because they had taken away his passport, and of course they weren't going to let the Africans from Azania, get there. What the writers and artists resolved, one of their resolutions was, the need to get rid of racism, but that you couldn't do that, right? It was impossible to eliminate racism if you don't dismantle colonialism, because colonialism is what generates the racism, which is why these victories over racism just really continue stoking more racism. And even Obama had to admit the Trump moment is reaction to, his having been president, even though in his own words, he governed as a moderate Republican, right? Right. So it doesn't, but again, I don't want to lose the point of seizing this opportunity because the contradictions in the society are becoming so clear to so many people. It's been at least 10 years, if not longer. Really, I think we can go back 26 years, when Gore, refused to push the
Yeah.
point, even though he had actually won the
Yes.
election.
Yes.
That people have talked about the undemocratic character of the Electoral College, the undemocratic character of the Supreme Court, who are basically making law, right? Not interpreting law, but making law. So how are we then going to go ahead and take advantage of this general dissatisfaction? People are prime for general strikes. They want something different from these politicians, and if the capitalist parties aren't going to give them what they want, and they can't give them what they want, right? Because they are capitalist parties. It goes against why they even exist, and they aren't going to continue to exist as they do now because they can't, right? History is moving beyond them. People in the United States are ready to move beyond them, and this just again makes it crystal clear, I think, to communities, what is necessary, what's going to be necessary. If the democratic space has been completely shrunk, what is left to people uh, except action outside of electoral politics? And again, we believe in the vote. The vote is one of the tools in the toolbox. So it's not about giving up the vote. And this is going to have national impact, right? What is it going to mean in California? I think remains to be seen. But it's going to have some kind of impact. There are like 56 or 57 people running for governor in California. You hear about, five of them, I think, routinely. But if you take a look at the ballot, there's at least 56 or 57 on the ballot right now, who have no access to the voting public, right, to get their stories out. If you aren't one of the leading Republicans and leading corporately approved Democrats, or you're a billionaire who can afford, to pay for your own advertising. So if we can't take advantage of this moment when there is so much crisis and so much dissatisfaction, shame on us. We shame our ancestors because the moment is right. And wasn't the call in the 60s to seize the time?
Use the time.
I think we should be seizing the time.
I just want to just bring up something real quickly to your point that you were just raising, and also to everybody's point. Please, everybody, look again at the point number 15 of the 19-point platform. I will put that up again at some point. But where we are talking about this system needs to be changed and implementing proportional representation voting systems. And I think that's a way, something that we can definitely be fighting for, to seize this opportunity and to continue to elevate the political the political thought processes of our people, to tell us how to navigate through this system. And one of the things that I just have to say, and I've seen this in New Jersey and in all of my life, just about, I ain't gonna get into how old I am, but I've still seen it a long time, where for the most part, outside of really being within the Uhuru movement, the most thing I've ever heard collectively is voting for the lesser of two evils and voting for the
Mhm.
Democratic Party. And I have just seen that literally. I mean, it's like just drag some of us down into the sewer. That's just the best way I can describe it. Dragging us into the sewer. And and one of the things, and Sister Betty, I see you got your hand raised, and I'm going to relinquish the floor. I just want to put this in here. One of the things I think the political narratives, the things that we tell ourselves is so important. That's why, Chairman, when you corrected that and said, it ain't corrupt, it is what it's doing.
This is what it
That is so
is.
important. And that is one of the things that I've gained so much from being with the Uhuru movement, the political perspective, the things we tell ourselves. Because this voting for the lesser of two evils, first of all, to even tell ourselves to vote for evil, there's a problem with that. But we really see now where there's a certain a portion of the people and our community can least afford to do that. We now don't see anything wrong with voting for warmongers and all of that kind of stuff. And we condition ourselves to having a seat at the table instead of building dual and contending power. And I think that narrative has been very dangerous to us in terms of that seat at the table narrative. So I just wanted to just put that in there. And please, let's continue this discussion.
Can I make two more just really quick points?
Right. And then, Sister Betty, did you have your hand raised? I thought I saw your hand raised. Okay. So you make your point. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Just two really quick points. They are going after the 19th Amendment, right? That is in
You said the
the air.
19th
They're already
Amendment?
talking about it. The 19th Amendment. So they're trying to take away the vote from women generally.
Oh, okay.
And the Speaker of the Alabama House just a few days ago, or maybe last week, openly said he hopes the Supreme Court repeals the 14th Amendment, not just the birthright citizenship, but the 14th Amendment. So that we need to know that. That's all. Thank you.
Right. Sister Betty, you had your hand raised in the chat.
Yes, I just wanted to emphasize that this is a perfect opportunity to teach about colonialism. And when we talk about the election campaign school, people misunderstand the purpose of running for an office. Because of who we are and what we say and speaking truth to power, you don't win every election at the first time you go for it. What you win is the right to speak truth to power and to really come up with a dynamic concept of what colonialism means. And for us in New York City, this latest attempt by the city council to vote for the city of Yes, which is responsible for the displacement of over 200,000 Africans in 20 years, is an opportunity to explain this is what colonialism looks like. For those of us who live in New York City, where the issue of houselessness is out of control to the extent that in the public school system, where all the poor working class kids that the elite charter schools in New York do not admit, 1 out of every 7 of those public school children they admit is houseless, has no home. It is an opportunity for us to reach them, to organize with them, to overcome this. Thank you.
Chairman, it seems like
Yeah, and this is a very important discussion. I think that just think about it. If everybody who is running, everybody we get to run for office, and we are going to have people running, but if everybody was talking about colonialism, being opposed to colonialism, that's the discussion that's happening all around this country. And I feel proud to say that party has really pushed that and made it not just a domestic issue inside the United States, but all around the world now. People are talking about colonialism again. And that was the movement that was crushed in the 1960s. Lumumba, Nkrumah, Black Panther Party, all those forces, they were crushed because of the colonial question, and Cuba attacked because of the colonial question. Che Guevara tried to initiate a whole continental-wide guerrilla war against colonialism in Africa. So this is a really critical question, and they recognize it's critical. It takes us off of this silliness of just trying to get the white people to like us, and I'm convinced white people will like you once you get power. Once you move toward power, I think it was Kissinger who once said that power is a great aphrodisiac. If you want them to love you, get the power, and you'll see how many people who seemed to hate you yesterday will become, fawning sycophants on tomorrow with the power. The power does that. Also, I think it's important to say that one issue that we're confronted with that's hamstrung a lot of people who come at Sister Vice Chair Lisa, who seem to be stuck with the lesser of two evils, is because there doesn't seem to be any alternative to the Republican or the Democratic Party. So this is the framework for how their brain works in terms of how we're going to get free, how we're going to make progress. You got to go to the Democrats or you got to go to Republicans. and the Democrats haven't had to promise black people a damn thing, nothing, 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 and they haven't given anything to us because we all our alternative appears to be Trump or some horrible person they see in the Republican Party when they're both cut from the same cloth. There's no difference in the two of them. So I think that's something that we need to understand. Comment Sister Betty was talking about, and what we are talking about. How do we actualize the struggle for power? And we are still under attack. Don't make no mistake about it. They've sanctioned us to keep us from accessing banks and stuff like that. And there's no telling, I'm not going to be surprised any day if they attack us again. That's why, really trying to deepen, roots among the masses is such a critical thing. And this is to Comrade Paul Pumphrey's point as well, to some extent. Not to some extent. I mean, that's what it means to have the radio station that we created in Florida. The radio station, we just got a license for a radio station here in St. Louis to start creating our own power, having our own discussions and what have you. So we don't have to worry about whether or not we're going to have access to them. We can establish those kinds of, and we have. We provided equal time to anybody who was running for office, et cetera. So I just wanted to make those points. I know that we are pushing the time thing, but I want to say those things. And finally, this stuff about the working class, you hear that bandied about a lot by people, the working class. You hear it now. You used to not hear it because what has happened with the enslavement of colonial slavery, it was something that made people not want to be workers. Not the white people didn't want to identify with the working class. You hear the politicians, they talk about the middle class, et cetera. They didn't want to say the working class. The only time we saw that reintroduced in recent history was with this Bernie Sanders, with the Walmart socialists. But the notion of a working class, that's critical, but not the way that Sanders mentioned it. And what's critical about it is because it's the working people who create all value. All value is created by workers, not by stock markets, not by bankers, not by insurance corporations. It's human beings who put our hands to nature and change nature in a fashion that it serves the interests of us as human beings. And we do this collectively. We do this socially. We don't do this as private individuals. So we do this socially. You have socialized production, then you got private ownership of that which is produced, or the means to produce it, et cetera. And that's the fundamental contradiction that we see happening in the world. And I've said enough. I see comment, Brother Paul.
Yes, Uhuru comment, Brother Paul. And just to give people an idea of how we're rolling, I want to hear from Brother Comrade Paul, and then we're going to go back. We got $137 more to raise of our $300 goal. We want to try to do that before we conclude with this particular webinar. And then I want to talk a little bit more about the electoral campaign school and also point number 15 and what we can begin to do. And then Chairman, you can close us out. But so Brother Paul, Uhuru.
One of the things I think is also clear is that we need to, when we go to our political work, we need to remind people, in fact, of what they're dealing with. The reason why we often have to be out here struggling is because those who are elected in office aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, that they're supporting the greedy. One of the things is clear. The United States right now spends over $1 trillion a year in the military. Now think about that. That is more money than any 10 countries' combined military budget. So you take Russia, China, France, Germany, Great Britain, you name it, South Korea, you name any 10 countries and combine their military budget. And it's less than $1 trillion. So one has to ask the question, are we afraid of Canada or Mexico?
Don't say we.
Well, okay, it's the United States claiming, the politicians claiming that we are afraid of China, of Canada or Mexico, because we got two oceans on each side of our country, and yet you got $1 trillion being spent. Now the question then needs to be compared to is how that money could be better spent. Why are people having to pay so much to go to college? Why are our schools in the inner city not properly equipped and our teachers properly paid? Why is it that we don't have decent health care? Now Trump is talking about taking the military budget to $1.6 trillion a year. So these are issues that should alarm anybody with common sense to understand that, in fact, this is a direct attack on the people of this country. And now you have the United States spending all this money over there with Iran and getting their butts kicked at the same time. And Iran is kicking the United States behind, spending about 1/10 the amount of money the United States is spending. We had the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, the largest aircraft carrier the United States have, staying as far away from Iran as possible. And now they told them to leave the whole area, go back to Virginia. Okay. And yet we're supposed to be in the middle of a war. So what is all this money being spent for? And this is a question that should be asked not just on election time, but all the time. We should be demanding that anybody in an elected office, especially in Congress, that question should be asked every time you have an opportunity to ask them a question. If they come and hold a press conference about something, why are we spending all this money on this? And why is that more important? And when they asked Trump about the budget of $1.6 trillion, he stepped back and said, well, the states should pay for Social Security. The states should pay for Medicaid. The states should pay for affordable housing. At the same time, the states claim they can't even pay for what they're trying to pay for now. Most states are in debt. So this is the crisis, in my opinion, that we should really be discussing with people on a daily basis, including with our family members. If we had a family dinner or get together, we need to ask people, how come we have elected officials representing us who sit back and say that we should be wasting our tax dollars this way? And so that's just another point that I think is very important that needs to be pointed out. And clearly, it's not putting us to an advantage right now in the Middle East. Clearly, Iran is kicking butt, spending about maybe 1/10 of what the United States and Israel is spending. Of course, Israel is spending most of our money in the first place because a lot of their weapons are coming from the United States taxpayers. But these are the kind of things that we should be calling into question about people running for the House or the Senate in our federal government. And we should be asking our local officials, how come they're not challenging them at the same time? Because if they're wasting our money on the federal level, that means the federal government has less money to put down and to serve our interests here in the United States. So those are just two other points that I wanted to bring up. I think are very important points we should be discussing amongst our community and helping people to understand how unfair and unjust our tax system is, and that clearly the people who represent us on a national level and on a state level aren't doing their jobs the way they should be.
Brother Paul, and that is a great segue.
Oh, one last thing. Put me down for $50.
All right, I like that last thing. Don't make that last. I can do you can continue to do that. I don't got to be last. But I just want to say this is an excellent segue into the importance of the electoral campaign school. So let me just bring this up a moment. Sister Bikanke, if you need to jump in and say anything about it, that's going to our electoral campaign school. Let me go back right here a moment. Our electoral campaign school is going to be held June 6th to the 7th. And you can go to tinyurl.com, BIB School 26 to register. That's tinyurl.com, tinyurl.com/BIB School 26 to register. It is going to be June 6th to 7th. It's going to be in person and virtually as well. So you can definitely participate virtually. And This is one of the reasons why the electoral campaign school is so important, because we were tired of just being taken advantage of. We saw that voting in this system and voting with the ideology that many of us had, or the narrative that many of us had, it was a narrative that was taking us nowhere or to the bottom fast. It's a narrative basically that has literally people talking about the benefits, or the credentials of people who are genocidal warmongers. But the
Um,
Democrats have better manners than the Republicans sometimes. And literally, I hear people talking all the time. Well, you know something, but Michelle Obama, she has nice arms, and you should have voted for Kamala Harris. No, that is no way to go. They are both warmongers, and also they have anti-Black agendas. I mean, ain't
Sister Lisa, I got my
yeah.
hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jump in, please. Come on in, Sister Belinda.
Yeah,
Come
you
on
know,
in.
you told Sister Kenya to jump in, but I really want to jump in because
Yes,
I
please
agree
do.
that this is an excellent way to talk about, you know, what our upcoming webinar is going to be able to you know, get people all excited about. You know, we want people to come to this webinar on June 7th, 6th and 7th. And they're going to be able to take away a lot. And what's so important right now is that what I want the whole world to know is that here in Louisiana is a hot pot boiling point right now. There is a lot going on here, but there is great opportunity to organize and mobilize, you know, Black people on the local level to get involved and have their voices heard like never before. And also, you know, with our electoral school, you know, we're encouraging and empowering people to, you know, to take a stand, to get involved and be a part of these elections, where we can, you know, I think Sister Betty said it early, you know, stand on this platform to get our 19-point agenda out there and talk about what it is that we want. You know, not what they're doing. You know, I don't want to talk about what they're doing. I want to talk about what we want and what we're doing to unite and come together to make a powerful impact in our communities and how we're going to do it. So I just want to say that, you know, Louisiana is the place to be right now because there is a awesome movement. You know, I talked to President Zaki that's on his way out of the country right now, and he gave me some powerful, I mean, just horrific information about what took place in Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, in 1984. And I was hoping that the chairman could weigh in on it because he ran for governor and it allowed him to have a platform and the opportunity to talk about calling for a Black people political convention. You know, I think that's something that can happen here in the state of Louisiana. We are ripe and ready for that because of some of the things that are taking place here. You know, I know you guys been watching. You know, Sister Betty, you know, spoke to some of the things that have that's transpiring right now as we speak. But I wanted to say this, you know, with our electoral school, you know, it's time to get the young people involved. It's time for to let them know that they can come and be empowered and put their name in a race. I don't care what it is, if it's school board, if it's the commission, the water, you know, I don't care what it is. They need to put their name in and just show up and show out and have you know, the opportunity to speak up and speak out against the things that we want to see happen in our communities on a local level. So with that note, I just want to say that one most important thing, there are 6 amendments on the Louisiana midterm election. One of them is going to affect the whole world, and most people don't know about it because they have kept it on the down low. It's the unclassified. They calling to have the unclassified civil service workers removed. And what this is going to do is going to affect the citizens on a economic where it's going to devastate a lot of the families in regard to becoming at will employees. It's going to take away all of their seniority, take away all of their retirement benefits, take away everything that they didn't work so hard, years and decades to have. This amendment is going to take that away and make them at will employees. It's going to be a sad day if we don't vote that amendment down. And I'm telling you, it's going to be an uproar. It's going to upset a lot of people because of the fact that it's going to be devastating. So I just wanted to say those things, and it's a whole lot more I can say, but I'm going to stop it right there. And I want everybody to come and be a part of June the 6th and 7th. Sister Lisa, you can go ahead and talk about why we need everybody to come and share widely about what's going to happen in our electoral school campaign.
Sister Lisa, you're muted and your camera is off. And we have raised $313. We want to get to. I need another $37.
That's right. You need another 37. I'm gonna give you 10.
Let me say that I got a text from somebody who said that I was frowning, and they thought I was frowning because when Paul Pumphrey was speaking, I was frowning because I was trying to figure out how to send $50 on Cash App. So I'm squinting and trying to send. Right. So that's what was happening, and I still haven't figured it out. But put me down for 50 as well.
I got to tell you, that's why a lot of times, you'll see me turn my camera off if I'm not talking, because there have been times I've seen myself, you're watching these back, and I'm like, Lisa, what is that face you just made? Or I'm doing something ridiculous. But I just want to go back a moment to the 19-point platform, because anybody that the Black is Back coalition endorses, they got to accept all of these points on this 19-point platform. Sister Parker Brown has endorsed this 19-point platform. She's running on this 19-point platform. And when we get people to run, we gotta build this up so strong so they will know they got a force behind them. That Black is Back endorsement means it ain't no just little something, it isn't. And just even thinking along these terms, imagine you have this as what you're going to be questioning politicians about, what you're going to be making decisions about whether or not you're going to give them your vote. This is so important. So this 19-point platform, we need to really be clued in on this, and especially point number 15. I will just read the last part of this paragraph. In addition to the right to vote, because voting should belongs to the community and to the people, that in addition to that, though, there should be an irrevocable right to vote. We demand the use of proportional representation voting systems that more effectively reflect Black people's political aspirations and opinions. Winner takes all voting as practiced in the U.S. is inherently undemocratic and incompatible with Black people's right to self-determination. I don't even understand. I mean, I do understand on the one hand, but this nonsense about having to have the Voting Rights Act renewed every whatever amount of years, that's ridiculous to me. And I think that needs to be challenged. And I'm just going to go over one more time on the membership. Membership is everything. If we got members, the money and all the other things that we need will come, but membership is the most valuable resource that an organization can have. Become a member. Instead of talking about, have you been registered to vote, or if you're a Democrat or Republican, we should be talking about what revolutionary organization are you with? Are you with the Black is Back Coalition? Did you become a member of that? Are you with the Uhuru movement? What are you talking about? What are the goals and aspirations? And do you have a political ideology that you can stand on no matter what? Because I ain't capitulating to nada. I'm not. I don't believe And you will see that the history of the Black is Back Coalition, although just to be very clear that the Uhuru movement has been in existence a lot longer than the Black is Back Coalition and the African People's Socialist Party, certainly, and certainly the chairman's history. And many of the history of people here on this call and this webinar started has been much longer than the history of the Black is Back Coalition, but we still have a very strong history. And you will see if you look at our principles, and you even look at the 19-point platform, but you look at our principles, which we founded like 2008. I can't believe it's going on 20 years. You will see we did not capitulate. We did not deter from that as an organization, and that speaks to the strength of a strong political ideology. And Sister Ikenge, did we meet our goals? If you're talking, you're muted.
We did. I want to thank Brother Feist for $20, the chairman for $50. We raised $383. But if we raised another,
Did you
what,
put me down for
20?
10?
No, I didn't. So now we've raised $393,
Who's
which
got the other
means we need
seven?
what, $7 to get to 400.
Who's got the other
Mhm.
seven? Who wants to split the difference with the other seven with me? I'll do 350.
Okay, so then now we need $3.50.
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it.
Next time we're
Okay, and
gonna
there's Samantha, who says put her down for 50. So that means we
woo!
raised $450. Thank you, Sister
Oh
Did,
wow.
Samantha.
did you put down the
Better.
50 that did you put
Yes,
down the 50 that I
got your
sent in?
50.
Right.
Yes, Paul. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I'm gonna do my little, as soon as this call is over, I'm gonna do my 1350 to this. I'm gonna donate that. And also for all of you who did donate, I hope that you will become a member of the Black is Back Coalition. And the Black is Back Coalition, we are a coalition of African people for African people, but you can still be supportive of the Uhuru movement. I mean, if you don't quite, fit that category, because there's something for everybody. And Chairman, I'm about to relinquish the webinar to you, the floor to you, but I just want to again, in terms of the incredible work that the Black is Back Coalition has done, and in terms of the incredible work of the Uhuru movement and the importance of having a strong political ideology, I have seen with my own two eyes many times the chairman or somebody within the organization will say, "Let's do this," and I'm sitting there. I mean, I don't cast aspersions on anybody, but sometimes somebody makes a suggestion, and you're like, "Yeah, you don't know how that's going to happen." But I've seen it manifest. I really have. I remember when the chairman said, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't understand why you want to move from a warm state to a colder state like St. Louis. I was like, okay. But I remember the first time we were meeting in St. Louis, and it was I think it was in 2015, not long after Michael Brown had been murdered. But I remembered meeting in I think a community room or something. I don't even know where that building was. And to remember that day, and then to see them continuously build, the chairman and them, they ended up moving to St. Louis, and to just see the Black Power blueprint take off, although I know there had been other manifestations of it, but to see that just build up before my own eyes in St. Louis is incredible, and the Black Power blueprint. Also, I just have to say this too, to be a part of the Uhuru movement when they came after the chairman, in the Uhuru 3. And I remember I got the call that was in July, that was in 2022, and that they had just been attacked. And I remember thinking, oh, Brother Nkulu, like I see your hand up, I will call you. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, they could be coming after any one of us. I never looked at it, oh, they are attacking them. I saw that meant that everybody within the Black is Back Coalition and anyone who had anything to do with the Uhuru movement was also in their crosshairs. But I said, I'm going to hold the line, and I'm going to follow and do what I'm asked to do, and also based on knowing the history of the chairman, and to be a part of this Uhuru movement, and a movement that was about building dual and contending power instead of trying to sit at their damn tables, and to see that they came after them hard, but they could get no one to break. They could get no one to testify against them at that hearing, and they put money behind it. I know this for a fact. That's strong. That speaks to the strength of a strong political ideology, not having something we want to sit at their table. And Brother Nkululeko, do you want to say something? And then Chairman, after Nkululeko speaks, please close us out as only you can.
Yes,
Uhuru.
Uhuru. This is in Kudaleko. I see. I just wanted to acknowledge one of our viewers and with us, Samantha Johnson. She's a part of the People's Coalition to Stop
Woo,
D
woo.
Theft, and she's also running for a position in the local government here in the Republic of Brooklyn. So I definitely wanted to big her up and tell her welcome to the Black is Back Coalition. We definitely look forward to supporting her during her campaign as well.
I'm gonna tell you, I gotta give a shout out to the coalition to stop deep that you make me so proud. I just gotta tell you that you make me want to work with you. I'm in New Jersey. And also I just want to say this before we close out, because we should be watching what just happened in Newark as well, because in Newark they had elections yesterday, and Donna Jackson, just gonna give her a shout out. She's a hellraiser, known as a hellraiser, an activist who's on the ground. She's been doing a lot of work for like 30 years. She is anti-establishment, and she's not with the Democratic or the Republican Party. I've seen her raising hell with these people and these politicians and all of that. And she won a city council seat. And I see that as representative of people just so sick and tired of this Democratic establishment and even the Republican one, and thinking that they own our people. So I think we should be paying attention to that. And Brother Chairman, uhuru!
Well, thank you, Comrade. I really want to express my appreciation to this committee, this leading committee of the Black is Black Coalition, and all of you who are participating in this discussion. I agree with Comrade Vice Chair Lisa that everybody should join the coalition if you haven't already done so. If you're part of an organization that's not joined the coalition, you should look at and see what the organization is about and take that and get your organizations to join this coalition. You can't do better work than this. And also that we have to get members and raise money because that we've been afloat. We've never had to go outside of our own capacity as an organization to be able to fund ourselves. So I think that's extremely important. I also just want to say that we are not going back, and we should really embrace that concept that we're not going back, no matter what it is that they're trying to do. And that I agree with what Comrade Youssef, I think it was, said that there are all kinds of opportunities at this moment as well. And I really think we should recognize that because the disdain for this administration is profound. It does not have the support of the majority of the people in this country. And but the problem is that people do not see alternatives. And that's what our responsibility is to show alternatives. We can win people. And those of you who are familiar with some of the work we do specifically in St. Louis can see that we've won a lot of people. Those of you who know that we have won white people to work for reparations in 130 some odd cities in this country. Know that there are people who can be won. We just have to give them an opportunity. We just have to make ourselves visible and take our programs to the people. And so I just think that's extremely important. And everybody here should take the coalition to your bases, to your organizations, get the word out. Let's build for this school that's going to be happening first part of June, and get as many people as possible to the school. And we will move forward and affect how people understand the whole question of elections, period. And somebody, perhaps Sister Belinda Parker Brown, will tell them that elections are not in the Bible. So there's a way we can move forward. And I think that's extremely important. So thank you very much, sisters and brothers, comrades, Comrade Vice Chair Lisa Davis, thank you, and everybody else, all of you.
Yes.
Guru.
Right. And all you got to do is just come as you are, and you will discover that if some of you might be a little intimidated, this is how you get your courage. This is how you get your
Just
courage.
let everybody here who might be moving toward intimidation, just remember, Black is back.
That's right. Black is
Black
back.
is
That's it.
back.
Black is back. And we operate in the black. So that's why we need, we appreciate you so much. We appreciate all of you so much and all the comments.
Wonderful.
You're so appreciated. Uhuru!
Your
Uhuru.
Uhuru!
Black is back.
Black is back.
back.
Yes.
You hear that, Supreme Court? You hear that?